Raphi. We're going to speak to Raphi. We're going to speak to Mohammed. Raphi is chair of the Northwest Friends of Israel. Good morning, Raphi. And Mohammed in Manchester. Hi. Mohammed in Manchester was in Gaza for the first 2 months of the conflict. Good morning to you, Mohammed.
Good morning.
Raphi, what is your reaction as the chair of the Northwest Friends of Israel to the international condemnation, not just of the deaths of those aid workers, but condemnation of the way that Israel is conducting this conflict? Raphi.
I'll start by saying absolutely, it's an absolute tragedy that these aid workers were killed. Personally, myself, my thoughts go out to their families and obviously to everybody connected with it. The IDF has acknowledged that it was a grave error. They've obviously apologised for it, which is the least that they can do, and they've launched a detailed investigation into it to find out why it had happened. In terms of your question about the way that the war has been, the way the IDF has operated during this war, I think it's really important to constantly remind people. You quoted a figure of around 30,000 deaths from the Hamas ministry. I was pleased to hear that you quoted the IDF figure of, well, you said 10,000 Hamas terrorists killed. It's probably closer to 13 or 14,000. And if you actually look at that, the civilian to combatant ratio is roughly 2 to 1. The United Nations say that in urban conflict environments, the ratio is normally 9 to 1. It's normally, the average is 9 civilians to 1 combatant. And I think we need to look at the fact that this war is taking place in the most complex urban environment that has ever been seen in modern warfare. You have Hamas terrorists with terror tunnels embedded in mosques, schools, homes, civilian homes used as arms dumps, terrorists fighting in civilian clothing. And I think that needs to be taken into account. You're fighting an enemy who cares not one bit for its own civilian population. And so therefore, I think that whilst every civilian death is a tragedy, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, the way that this war has been conducted by the IDF, despite what people are saying, in the annals of urban warfare, when you compare it to Fallujah 1 and 2, to Mosul, actually it's been conducted in a way that has minimized the civilian casualties in as much as can be possible, considering the complex urban environment. You know, we've seen the videos of terror tunnels, of arms dumps, of terrorists firing RPGs from windows.
You've made those points very strongly. Don't go anywhere. I just want to get a response, and then we'll hear from some aid agencies as well. And Mohammed, I'll give you roughly the same amount of time, and then maybe you can engage. Mohammed, what's your reaction?
Okay, hi. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Nikki. My reaction, first of all, to the killing of the aid workers, of course, we are horrified by that killing. I also say it's a sad state of affairs that it's taken the death of 7 non-Palestinian aid workers to bring world attention onto the war crimes that are being carried out by the Israeli military, because I think Raphi said that it was a tragedy. I think he failed to say that Israel is carrying out war crimes daily in Gaza, in Palestine, and so that's my initial response. We really need to take I think when I this morning, we were asked, what does the UK need to do? And I think, there's a few things that need to be done. We need to look at the International Court of Justice ruling that found that Israel was plausibly conducting a genocide. I will repeat that for your listeners. Israel is plausibly conducting a genocide in Gaza. This has been ruled by the top international court in the world. And so I would say that the UK government needs to go along with that ruling and take every measure to prevent Israel from conducting this genocide by stopping its sales of weapons. I know that the UK doesn't supply that many weapons, but the UK is a world leader still and has sway in that respect. And then we'll add to that, I think the media need to do more of their bit in terms of, ensuring that when, for example, hi Raphi, nice to speak to you, but ultimately Raphi sounds like a spokesperson for the IDF. So I don't know if Raphi is a guest that is
okay, let's get
impartial
a response. Let's get a response. Sure. Let's get a response. Well, you know, that's what we seek. That's the holy
Can I just,
grail.
no, actually, before you,
Not the most appropriate phrase.
Nikki, forgive me.
I need to put a
Nikki,
caveat
before you
in
get a
as well,
response,
because
I
it's
need
my
to tell
job.
about my
I'm going to come
personal
back to
story.
you. I'm going to come back to you. Yes, please. I'm just trying to give everyone roughly the same amount of time. Please bear with me here. I have to put some parenthesis in on figures and facts as well, just to remind people that genocide is a complex term legally. It's for the courts to rule. You mentioned quite rightly a plausible case. The provisional measures issued by the ICJ, International Court of Justice, are not indicative of their ruling on merits. The merit stage is to come, and we will watch out for it. Top international lawyers are divided on the issue. I need to say that. It's my job. Rafi, come back on what you heard.
I'm not the spokesperson for the IDF. I am somebody who has family who live. I am somebody who has family who live in Israel. My mother lives in Jerusalem. My sister lives in Tiberias. I have numerous cousins and aunts and uncles who live in Israel. But what I'm stating is the fact. Look, there's no genocide. The genocide is a systematic eradication of a race or a people. In 1967, the Palestinian population in Gaza and the West Bank was 1.3 million. In 2023, it's 5.3 million. There's no genocide going on. Jews know about genocide. Let me make that very clear. And this is no genocide. In terms of war crimes, look, it's interesting that, you know, the other caller doesn't mention Hamas. You know, Hamas are a prescribed terrorist organization under UK law. They are a genocidal terrorist organization whose charter calls for the destruction of the state of Israel, but also for the murder of Jews anywhere in the world. That is in black and white. It's all very well to focus on the actions of Israel and the IDF in Gaza, but let's recall that on October the 7th, there were more Jews murdered in one day than since the Holocaust. And the reaction to that was to go about to dismantle and destroy Hamas, a terrorist organization who seeks to murder Jews everywhere in the world. No one is calling for that. This could be over in an instant. If Yahya Sinwar and Hamas leadership surrendered, if the remaining 4 battalions of Hamas fighters, terrorists, located in Raphi,
I'm going to pass that over.
Surrendered. This would be over in a heartbeat. But why isn't your caller calling for Hamas to surrender?
I'm going to ask you both a question, and I'm going to ask for a single answer, because it is actually a simple answer, and it's a yes/no. And if it's longer than a yes/no, I'm going to move on. Mohammed, do you recognize Israel's right to exist? Yes or no?
Israel does not recognize my right to exist, and so
okay, I'm going to move on.
Rafi,
Rafi, do you recognize the need for a two-state solution? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you both very much indeed.